Welcome to Did You Say Something, the variety podcast that changes week on week. I am one of your hosts, Conor Lewis, and he is the other host. That doesn't really matter. I saw that side eye. Today's show, we have got something very special lined up for you. We have got the wonderful talents of Molly Rock and the incredible writer and author that is Emery Grover. He's going to be plugging his new book, Avalon Assignment. No, that's not your new book, is it? Is it the new book? It is the new book. We can cut this bit. No? Brilliant. One thing that is guaranteed on this show always is chaos and derailments, perfectly summed up by that intro. Without further ado, Matt, over to you.
Thank you, Conor Lewis. I am the other guy. Matt Mangum is the co-host of this podcast. As always, like short description, Conor and I are voice actors, narrators, and we were chatting around, having some fun one day, and decided that we should take that chaos and make a podcast, and then in turn give back to some of these amazing communities that have done so much for us, and have a bit of a laugh and some chaos in between as well. So here we are, episode 2 of Did You Say Something? And as Conor had said, we have the incomparable Molly Rock. A lot of you guys know who she is. If not, you're about to be introduced. She is amazing. And Emery Grover with the Avalon Assignment, which is the new book. If someone had done their homework, they would understand that the Tronus Assignment was book 1 in the series. But, you know, there's a reason why we have one main interviewer on this show.
Well, we've got 2 hosts.
But no, very good writing. So we're here in a bit here. We're gonna bring up our guests and talk to them. But just want to again take another second to say thank you to everyone who has been very, very supportive of us so far, and anyone that you know that would enjoy a bit of chaos and some entertainment. Please go ahead and share this podcast out. And if you yourself would like to be a guest, or you know anybody that would be a great guest on our show, please email us at DYSSPodcast@gmail.com, and either Conor or myself will get back to you on that and see if we
There'll
can
be
get
a
you
link
for a
somewhere.
show.
A link somewhere on the screen, maybe here or here.
Yep, Jake,
In the
figure that
middle.
out. One of those places that Conor is pointing.
That one.
Right there. Awesome. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we're going to bring up Molly. Molly has done a lot in the industry and is currently in some works, and we're definitely going to speak to her about that. Molly was one of the very first people that I met when I entered into the voice acting scene, and she's been very supportive and is just an amazing person for everybody. So we cannot wait to have her on. And there she is.
As if by
Come on
magic.
in. Molly, hello there.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Welcome to DIS. We are happy to have you on, and I was just telling everybody about some of the things, not in detail, of course, because I'll leave that up to you, that you have done in voice acting. So I guess I'll start out kind of with the beginning. Where did you get your start? What got you interested in being voice acting? A voice actor.
Did you say something?
Yes.
You got the assignment. Very nice. All right.
Okay. I have been acting since I was able to speak. You know, everything has always been sort of a performance for me. I'm from the rock family, so that's probably not surprising because, you know, that's the kind of energy we give. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and got an associate's degree there. Was invited to their company year, and then was doing professional theater in New York City for a while, and was interning there and also working at the library as a librarian. Little bit of course, bartending, because, you know, an actor in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And after September 11th, I ended up in Orlando, Florida. My father had a stroke and on his dominant side of his body and was paralyzed. And, you know, it just was a lot for my mom to try to help take care of him. And so while taking care of, I have 3 boys as well. I sort of am that sandwich generation, parents, kids. Mm-hmm. And then my mom, we found out that she had Parkinson's. So I sort of gave up a lot of the actual professional acting stuff during that couple of decades there, while focusing on caregiving. But I still did training, and I did some directing, and I did some coaching and things like that just to kind of keep it going. And then during the pandemic, my father had passed away, and during the pandemic, that's when somebody who's a very prolific voice actor that's a friend said, you don't have to live in New York City or LA or, anything anymore. Like, now you could be anywhere to do it. And so I started training with Steve Bloom and Jennifer Hale and Mary Lynn Wisner and a bunch of other really great coaches. And yeah, then this is me. Found all you crazy bastards on TikTok. And it's like the community I didn't know that I always should have been a part of. You know what I mean?
Right. I do.
It's like being welcomed home.
Yeah, and like I was saying in the beginning, you were one of the first people that kind of welcomed me into that community. You and Joe McKenzie and Vanessa Garcia and a few people really, really brought me in, and I've never been a part of a community that has given and cared more and been more supportive of everybody. And the competition is fair competition, and it's always about making the other person better. And Conor and I, as much as we're at each other's throats and all of that, we've auditioned for a lot of the same roles in doing that. And one gets it or the other one doesn't, and there's always congratulations. There's no beef or hard feelings,
No.
and I think that's amazing, right? Because there's unfortunately a lot of communities that are not like that, right? And so to see the support through all the different avenues too, from you have people making merch to authors to narrators to character voice actors, and even as I came in as a character voice actor to the narrating and audiobook community, and you know what I mean, was worried about like, oh, you're just a character actor, you know what I mean, you can't narrate, and no,
It shows.
immediately got a lot of support, and Conor's comments don't count.
Seriously.
But yeah, so right, and then jumped in and narrated, did all of it, and then getting into the comic books and all that, and it's fantastic. So yeah,
And Conor's like the newer person for me.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. No, you're good. Conor and I have only been really chatting personally for a little bit now, not very long.
Couple months, I think, to be
Yeah,
fair.
a couple months. And it's cool how quickly people can click that way, and then all of a sudden we're sitting here on a podcast. So here we are
Trying to make money off each other.
Yes, that's the real goal. It's the real care. You need that green. So,
I can pretend to be friends. It's all good.
professionally.
Professional
Listen,
friends.
we're actors. Act like friends.
Yes, exactly.
We got like 40 minutes left, guys. Behave, everyone.
Molly, you and I have got a little project coming up very soon, haven't we?
Oh, thank you, Conor. Perfect. Go ahead.
That's all
We have a
good.
couple of projects
We do
coming up
have a
very
couple
soon, I
of
think.
Projects, yes. The
Right?
one,
Do tell.
so we've got Bite of
I
Time.
don't know what I can tell. I'm leaving it to Conor. I'm shutting my yapper. I'm not getting in trouble.
I know one that we can talk about is Bite of Time by Spencer Mackenzie Brown, who wrote the theme song for this podcast and is a wonderful human being and a pretty good friend of mine. So he did another audio drama called Last Man on Mars, which I was a part of, and then that's led him on to wanting to do the Ad Astra Archives, which is going to be a series of short stories all revolving around different stuff. The next one in the series is Bite of Time. Not going to give away the plot because there's a hell of a twist in it. But Molly and I did a table read for it with Spence. He voiced the other character, and he can do a good job of it, to be fair. I wanted to take the piss out of him for it.
Just he's a great guy in general.
But he's got a good voice.
Great humor.
Yeah. He's very good at the way he writes as well. Not many people can write comedy because it's difficult to capture that, but he's done it pretty well. And I'm looking forward to getting started. I'm looking forward for you all to hear it. The other project, I'm not sure if we can talk about, so we'll move swiftly on.
That's a no.
I would say no because I thought about talking about
Then
it.
some other cool things.
And then I realized that
Yeah.
I probably
And some
shouldn't talk
other
about
cool
it.
things.
NDAs are a real thing, people. Okay, so
They see a big hook come off the screen and drag us all off.
it's like, you just see my screen go black.
I'm like, I'm going to leave this to Conor.
You son of a
all right,
bitch.
so we will we'll come back and learn some more about Molly, but it is now time to bring up our next guest. He is an amazing author, has just released a book called The Avalon Assignment, which we will be reading an excerpt of today for your pleasure. His name is Emery Grover. Book one was The Tronus Assignment. Emery, I'm going to welcome, sir. Welcome to the podcast.
Howdy.
Welcome.
I do have to say, man, I know I said it in pre-show here, but you without the cowboy hat just throws me, man. I love that thing.
It don't fit.
Just like that. Yeah. Don't drop it.
Don't move. Keep it on. We're perfect.
I thought I had a nice black cowboy hat, and then I saw Emery's. So, yeah. So,
It is a thing
getting
of
into this,
beauty.
Emery, welcome to the show again. So, I did want to give us a little bit of a preface because we know the Avalon Assignment just dropped, but we know to predate that would be the Tronus Assignment. So, can you give us a quick, brief overview of the Tronus Assignment before we delve into the Avalon Assignment?
The Tronus Assignment kicks off Gamma Squadron's initial adventures. It's a way to introduce Gamma Squadron, the principal point of view character that kind of tells you the universe, Newsy. It was meant as a cold open, exciting, down the muzzle adventure as Gamma Squadron's called out to the Tronus colony to help contend with what they think is a pirate operation. And this last action took some hostages, so the government there on that colony figures, yeah, we're out of our league, so let's bring in the professionals from Earth. And John manages to kind of flex some of his own connections and gets tied in so he can do the story centered around Gamma Squadron. And they go in, they enter the station, and they start trying to find the hostages, and they find out that what they're fighting isn't ragtag knuckleheads. They're inexperienced, but these aren't pirates. And they start to discover some more things as they go. And
Shenanigans happen.
antics occur, and questions are raised.
And that's what I have not read all of the Tronus Assignment, but I have been reading parts, and I'm definitely getting more into it because I think the more that I get to know you through interview shows and all of that, and then I'm going back and reading your writing, is I'm finding that given the opportunity, I would like to get to know the authors even before I read their stuff, because then I can now hear your humor where it's at, you know what I mean? And you like Conor and I and like Molly actually too have a dry sense of humor, so some of that stuff is hard to pick up on when you don't catch it. But there's some parts in there. There's some quick dialogue back and forth that's pretty funny if you really pay attention to it. And I like it.
I'm glad you know what humor is.
I wouldn't know without you, Dad. And then the diversity of the characters as well. There's very much a difference in the personalities and the backgrounds, and Gamma Squadron's very much put together, right? So it's like you're going to have different personalities there. So how does the Gamma Squadron kind of, without giving away obviously too many details about Tronus Assignment, how do they transition into the Avalon Assignment, and kind of where our expert is from today?
The transition into Avalon Assignment is the events are taking place like within a few days afterwards. They've come back from the asteroid. They've got somebody for the intelligence division to question, and the last we see of her in Tronus Assignment, she's being walked off, and Newsy is trying to wrap his head around how okay he is with the situation because of how it went. And so he has that realization that he has to think about it more. So we pick up an Avalon Assignment as she's being talked to and interviewed by some characters, and then we jump into what happens with that interview. And this stuff where this picks up here is a natural flow of the antagonist chain of events, that they're not completely in on. Gamma Squadron hasn't totally researched and figured out what's going on yet. They're starting to piece things together. And then this happens, and well, I guess we're going to go put this fire out. So this scene here comes with them on their way to do it, and it's already been a very dicey situation. So there's the moment of some interaction with the characters trying to wrap their heads around just what it is they're really doing and checking in on each other. And then, of course, there's Snoozy trying to tag along for the ride.
Fair enough. It's hard with the amount of characters that you give us to give us an exact of like, this is where this person's at, this is where this person's at, and then grab an excerpt at some portion of the book and say, all right, now feel this, right? So, which is normally as voice actors what we would like to do with a single character or maybe two characters. So I kind of wanted to get the general idea of the environment right now, what they're all going through. So they're kind of investigative, kind of figuring out what the hell's going on. A little shaky maybe, or in there? I mean, how?
It's what's going on in this sequence here is they're on the way to to Avalon Station to start this operation. So they're doing a quick recap, and the main character that this section really interacts with is just trying to wrap his head around how he feels about what's going to happen, because they're about to wade into a fight that's not just against their own people. There's an external force here, and he's trying to, why am I okay with what we're about to do to the degree that I am? And so he's getting kind of a check from a character that was created as like his foil and just an opposite to him, and is usually like really insightful.
So are we talking about Eversley and Keith here then?
Eversley and Qureshi, actually. Keith's made up his mind about what it is he has to do. So is most of the other team. It's just Eversley is that stage where he's like, I don't have an issue with what I do, but at the same token, I'm looking at this going, we're about to kick the door in, and a lot of people are about to die.
My kind of guy. Yeah, I'll just get that door down. That's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll deal with the consequences later.
And we now know why Conor is no longer in the armed forces.
We can't talk about that, Matt. Shush.
Sorry. Did you say something?
Did you say something?
Did you say something?
That was your cue, Conor. That was your cue.
Yeah, it was.
Set that one
I
up
missed
for
it.
you. All right. So bear in mind, Emery, that we asked you for a specific excerpt, and oh boy, did you deliver. As Conor and I were going through, I was like, how many? Oh, yep, there's another one. All right, okay. And then
that's another character?
Yep, there's another character. And then
I've run out of highlighter colors. There's no more colors for the highlighter.
That's exactly what Conor said to me was, well, we asked for it. He gave it to us. But yes,
Boy, did he fucking
as
deliver.
Conor just said, we ran out of colors to highlight with. That's how many characters there are. We got into like dark blue and light blue, right? I guess that's gonna work.
I think one of them's cornflower blue. That's how.
That's the one. That was the one. It was the cornflower blue.
But yeah, no,
Yes.
you fucking delivered on this one, and I am excited to get started.
It's a good one. Before we get started, Conor, do you want to go ahead and give everybody just a quick rundown of how we're reading this, and then we will get started.
Sure. So the way this is going to work is Matt, Molly, and myself are going to read through the excerpt that Emery has provided us from Avalon Assignment. It's chapters 10 and 11, I believe you said, Emery?
Yep.
Perfect. And the way it's going to work is one of us will do the narration, and then we divvy up the characters so that we can focus more on the acting rather than trying to do the whole thing. And obviously everybody has their own strengths and their own weaknesses. Female voices being one of my weaknesses, which is why we got Molly, who is a blurry expert in female voices.
Am I blurry too?
Don't buy Macs, people. Microsoft, sponsor us, please.
It's so frustrating.
So, I think the best thing to do is probably just show it off, and we will get started. Matt, try your best.
No promises.
Eversley had slept most of the trip out to the station, waking only when Keith kicked his boot. He sat up and stretched before standing and twisting a few times. Once he settled back into his seat, Keith looked at him, and all he could do was shrug.
All right.
Keith said.
Now that everyone's ready, one last time.
An icon appeared near the station representing the lander. A dotted line moved from it to the station proper. It was adjacent to the hangar bay, showing an external work access hatch. There was a circle around it now, with a red and blue line entering and separating, showing the paths each team would take.
First squad will secure the hangar area and advance down the cargo hulls. Second, will move into the superstructure and make their way to this point,
Keith explained, pointing to an area above the promenade and central tower. Eversley looked over to Holt and caught her eye long enough to exchange a nod. They had planned to be the team moving through the superstructure. There was no life support in those areas, no air pressure, and almost never any gravity. That made it dangerous, but to his mind, that was half the fun. The brief went on, going over all the small, intricate details they had developed a few hours earlier. Such was the way of being an operator. The detail work was necessary, but very redundant. He had accepted this fact of the universe, so he found the fun where he could. The minor space infiltration was by far the best part of the operation. The last moments of peace before the shooting started. Gamma was seldom called up for simple, non-violent operations. This one was different, though. Sheslan soldiers were clearly present amid the militants, and that raised so many questions. Eversley brought himself back to the present as Keith marked the various checkpoints and asked if anyone had anything to add. He wasn't surprised when no one said anything. They had all sat together and built the plan earlier that day. Every operation was a group effort, and by the end, everyone had committed it to memory.
So, he said, I'm going to say it. Who thinks this is an invasion?
Qureshi nodded.
I believe he has a point. Fully armored and obviously armed Sheslan soldiers involved in an attempted coup.
There is no definitive line on this,
Keith said.
so the standing order is to treat them as pirates, or at best, hired guns.
So, take no prisoners? Bekele asked. Keith shook his head and Eversley sat back, thinking about that. They hadn't been on a kill mission in a long time, and this rescue suddenly turned into one. Well, that wasn't entirely accurate, he thought. They knew it the moment they saw the footage.
What's wrong, my friend?
Qureshi asked.
Nothing. Just trying to get into the right headspace,
He said. She smirked at him.
I believe the term you use is bullshit, isn't it?
Eversley chuckled. Few people could call him out, and she was firmly on that list. They had been serving on Gamma the same amount of time. That much time together in the field, training together, built bonds, and some were tighter than others. While close to all the team, he figured about 4 of them were closer than the others. That meant they knew when someone wasn't being honest.
Well, yeah, he said. In this instance, it's true. Just a bit more real than normal, I suppose.
How so?
It's always rough having to kill our own to keep humanity together. Shouldn't it be easier to kill aliens to do the same job?
Qureshi shrugged.
Perhaps we've taken on that evil and are not sure how to do a different sort?
Killing is killing, Q.
Is it?
She asked.
We take life to protect the larger good of our people, but it is still our own we cull. Now the Sheslan are killing our fellow humans. We are not taking the lives of detractors to the idea of humanity, but direct foes to it. There is a protective and justified thrill mixed with the taking of life.
I don't follow.
We feel sorrow for killing misguided of our own. The Sheslan get no such reaction. They are an enemy with evil intent, and we feel vindication for killing them.
Well, that was a little dark.
She smiled and inclined her head, then looked at the time of arrival. After a moment, she climbed out off the seat, went to her knees, and began to pray. It astounded Eversley how she managed to always know when and where to face when doing so. He took a moment to stretch his legs across creating a small barrier to anyone moving around. None of them would intentionally bother her, but accidents happen. A quick look around and he saw the usual activity. Granberg sharpening his axe,
Pew Pew was sorting her field kit one last time, and Keith and Holt were talking. He noticed Andrews, Bekele, and Newsy were chatting among themselves. He almost felt sorry for Newsy. They'd have him scammed out of a fair amount of cash, given the chance. Both were decent card players, though Bekele tended to get drunk if the game took too long. Eversley wondered if Newsy knew that yet. A quick glance toward Harrison, George, and Turgenev, doing much the same amid themselves. Although it sounded more like setting up to take a count and see who got the best score of the day, he almost got upset with them. But in the end, each of the team found a way to resolve what would be happening, so he trusted Keith's judgment to allow it. Eversley settled on a quiet prayer of his own. It wasn't as pronounced as Qureshi's traditions, but he fell back on it once in a while, and if anger and righteous fury were going to be unleashed, he figured it couldn't hurt to get things right. When he opened his eyes again, he noticed Qureshi doing much the same for him as he had her. She smiled down and inclined her head as he settled back against the bulkhead again. It was hardly necessary, as far as he was concerned. It was simply a bowed head. The same way people respected her space to pray, he was less worried about being bumped into.
I've got your 6 even in the small things,
she said, sitting down. He smiled and nodded. Thanks.
It is about that time.
He nodded again, then let out a long sigh. He looked at her and held his hand up with all 5 fingers out. When she gave him a strange look, he winked and started to count down. When the last finger folded into his fist, he mouthed as Keith spoke, right on cue.
Saddle up!
He and Qureshi exchanged a chuckle as they stood, got their helmets on, and the last of their equipment shouldered. They had already placed some of the stuff on their armor, but the backpacks and secured larger items and equipment weren't exactly designed to be sat against.
What are you laughing about?
Holt asked. Eversley just shrugged. Just ready to go. Keith looked back at him and narrowed his eyes as the helmet went on.
I call BS.
Eversley laughed again. Think so?
Enough.
Jubert called out over the comm.
Heads in the game, folks.
The light in the interior changed colour to a dim red as everyone lined up and did one last seal check of their helmets. He felt Qureshi's hands checking his gear as he checked Stewart's, who was in front of him. Assuring that things were in order, he turned to Qureshi and made a spinning motion, doing the same to her gear as she was last in line.
Hey, look at Newsy.
Came Holt's voice on the comm.
He finally got it done in under a minute.
Everyone laughed. They might have started to accept him, but he was still going to be the butt of a few jokes. They tended to take turns picking on one another, but Newsy got priority for now. Eversley felt it was good for him. The guy was solid as far as he was concerned, and in the right line of work. He still couldn't really understand who would willingly go into a firefight unarmed. That was a crazy, even he didn't touch. The light flashed on and off twice. Keith looked back at everyone, then focused on Eversley. He was already checking everyone around him visually and saw everything was in place. Check and double check was the idea. Seeing no issues, he gave a thumbs up.
Cabin depressurizing.
The air was slowly removed from the section they were in. Eversley felt the suit compensate for the pressure change and felt the familiar feeling of isolation. Even though his team were all standing right there, they still felt distant, as if across a void. Approaching drop point, opening hatch. The door behind him opened and everyone turned around to face it. He and Qureshi would be first in this time. He smiled at the thought. Stepping back to the ramp, the feeling everyone else moving behind and beside him. The open void of space stretched out before him, stars as distant points, Tronus and its moons off in the distance, looking about the size of baseballs.
Good luck,
Jubert said over the comm.
Give 'em hell.
Hoorah! Came the response from everyone. Eversley felt his heart pounding, the thrill of the jump and the coming mission filling his body. Living on the edge of the knife, as he and some others called it. The proverbial blade was out now. and he felt the smile form on his lips, expanding into a grin. The light turned a pale green, and Eversley dove out into the void. It was a tricky way to deploy. In space, there is no up or down. Not in the natural sense. He had to break his existing movement and change that momentum in the direction he wanted to go. Here, it was towards the station that was just coming into view. The combustion of the transport's momentum, his suit's thrusters, and his orientation gave him the impression he was skydiving towards the surface. The distance allowed him to see the station's rotation as they approached. His suit's heads-up display making the projected path to the target landing site. They were right on course. "Deceleration," he called out. "Orient in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. At the last count, he activated the various microbursts to orient himself for a landing. His stomach felt cold as his body adjusted to the movement, then started to decelerate. He always found it strange that the human body still managed to maintain a feeling of equilibrium, even in zero gravity. He bent his knees and waited for the impact. The last few feet to the surface closing in. A few seconds later, one longer microburst, and he felt his feet make contact, touching down like a feather on the surface of the station. Automated programs kicked in, and his boots used a magnetic field to hold him against the station. The only feeling he noticed was the slight lurch in his body as he was now moving the same direction the station was rotating. "Good touchdown," he called. The rest of the team settled in behind him at 5-foot intervals, each touching as gracefully as he did, coming to rest as their momentum matched the new position. He counted each pair as they settled in, then watched Newsy almost stumble his landing. "Did you puke, Newsy?" he asked over the comm. His response was a middle finger salute and a head shake. Eversley chuckled again, wondering if they'd make an operator out of this man yet. He turned towards his destination. Now, it was time to get to work.
Before we jump into this next bit, Connor, do you want me to take Harrison? Since you would have both bits here. Because that is Harrison and Newsy.
Yes, please.
Okay, can do. Combination, combustion, headache, handshake. It's the same thing.
Did I say combustion?
You'll hear that on the playback. Let's continue.
This is why we use recording software, so that when you make a mistake, you can go back and redo it. After what seemed like ages, John felt his stomach stop doing loops. The disorientation and constant change in orientation was far more than he had expected. He did manage not to puke, and was proud of that, almost as much as he was relieved. Between the team's relentless torment and the foul smell in the visor, he wasn't sure what would have been worse. After a moment to orient himself, he could see the hatch they had planned on using to enter the station. The team moved in that direction, and he felt the hand of his handler on his shoulder for the trip. He looked over and saw it was Harrison instead of Andrews, which surprised him as much as anything else.
Don't worry, Newsy. I'm almost as good at babysitting as Andrews is.
John shook his head, and they moved with the team. "How'd you get stuck on my detail?"
Lost a bet.
"Seriously?" Harrison nodded.
Andrews called a marker in from a previous bet we made about Eversley and Granberg.
"You bet wrong, eh?"
It was an eating contest. Could have gone either way, honestly. Who knew Granberg could eat that many hot wings without a beer?
John laughed. He knew there was plenty of gambling going on, but he wasn't sure exactly how it overrode Keith and Jubert's word. Not that they had told him who was going to be watching him. He figured it was a standing assignment. Evidently, that wasn't the case.
I'll get you through it,
Harrison said. "I know," John replied. "Be too much bad PR." John got his helmet camera going and set up his drone. It couldn't fly now, but it would be helpful once they got inside. For now, he watched his footage to see where he was in orientation to things. Even though he had a different escort, he was still in the same place, parked right behind Stuart, which made sense given the amount of medical gear he was carrying.
"Everybody, hold here."
Qureshi said via the comm. The team shuffled, crouched and kneeled, looking outwards over the smooth surface of the station. There was nothing for anyone to hide behind, but that also meant there was no cover. John felt the idea of a fight out on the surface to be insane, but insane was common for Gamma. "There's an entry denial device here," Eversley said. John looked and zoomed his camera in more, watching Eversley and Qureshi examine the hatch carefully. Eversley had one of his combat suit's cord cameras out and was fishing it into the station somehow. Qureshi was doing something similar with hers.
Eversley, freeze.
Qureshi said. John felt his blood run cold at the tone in her voice. The feeling was magnified by just how quickly Eversley did as she said. The man was practically a statue in the blink of an eye.
"Device.
She said.
Just next to where your camera was moving. Come my direction with it. 1/2 inch, then up and out."
After Eversley did as she told him, he moved away carefully. Then she retracted her camera and moved back as well. Both of them looked back at the team and exchanged a quick fist bump.
"Pew pew,"
Keith said.
"Get to work."
John watched Silverling move out of the formation and start sorting through her pack as she moved up. He had to remind himself not to say anything. He almost opposed the very idea. Then his senses got a hold of him. This is what she did, and was good at it.
"Tell me what you saw,"
she said to Qureshi, as the two went to a direct line. John was unable to listen beyond that point. Keith was on the team's line, however. He had already informed Juba of what was happening and said something about pivoting.
"All right, everyone,"
Keith said.
"Depending on how this goes, we might be hunting a different entry point. We could cut into the panels, a safe distance from the hatch."
Gramberg said.
"Just open space under most of this, isn't it?" "Yes, but that set off structural alarm for a breach. Be the same as just flying a shuttle into the hangar."
John looked at his direct link and looked at Harrison. "Huh?"
"Safety system. If there is any sort of penetrating impact on the station exterior, it would alert the sensors that there was a hole someplace there wasn't supposed to be. The hatches even have an indicator of being open properly or not."
Harrison explained. "Oh, so that means no blasting through the door." Harrison nodded, and John went back to listening to the overall conversation.
"Let's assume all the hatches have some similar setup.
Andrews said.
There is an umbilical about 500 meters away from the hangar."
"It's kind of an obvious entry," Bekele said.
"They can't lock the whole place down."
Andrews said.
"With what? A few dozen? A few hundred? This place would need a regiment to properly lock down."
John focused on what Silverling was doing, zooming his camera back in and watching patiently. She had her pack out, some cords, and her various tools just floating freely around her. She kept them sorted out like she had a wall-mounted storage bracket in normal gravity. There was a camera cord pushed into the space Eversley had previously occupied. Another cable in it as well, one he thought was likely a cutting tool. It could just be a different sort of camera. He wasn't about to bother her in the midst of her project. That would be a quick way to end up floating back to Tronis.
"If we select an alternate entry,"
Keith said,
"the first thing to keep in mind is they'll know, and this mission will go loud much sooner than planned."
John heard Gramberg's growl over the line. He wasn't sure if the man sounded eager or just crazy. The time he had spent doing stories around the military meant he knew some of the insider language. The phrase they were tossing around, going loud, meant the shooting would be intense and violent. The quiet and careful operation would be over, then it would be a fight to the finish. He wasn't sure he was ready to have a front row seat for that show.
"Hey, Keith,
Silverling said.
I don't think we have to worry about going loud. I've got a small countercharge set up on the device. We can open the door after it's cleared."
John blinked. He wasn't sure how long she had been working on it. She had told him she was good at what she did. While he didn't doubt her, he knew it for a fact now. The other option was the person who put it there was inept. But he let that thought run off and hide where it should. Silverling cleaned up her work and started to move away from the hatch while extending a cord from the wrist of her armor. Once she was near everyone else, she looked around and held up 3 fingers. John was sure he saw a smile on her face through the visor as she started the rapid countdown to 0. It was surreal, the flash and the minor, almost imperceptible thump in his feet, in total silence. He wondered if it was his mind putting in the bass sound. He wasn't sure he could have heard. Sound didn't travel in space, so he shouldn't have heard the blast, regardless of how large it was.
Gods,
Holt said.
you scare me sometimes, Pew Pew.
Everyone chuckled, and John once again wondered if he wasn't insane for wanting to film them. Though it was a great insight into their dynamics, to the point he planned on making commentary about it, especially in this instance.
All right,
Keith said.
time to get to work. Eversley, Cressy, you're up again.
John watched them both move to the hatch again, poking and prodding the damaged door to peel it open. He wasn't sure exactly what was happening at first. Then, after a bit of thought, John recalled. They were originally disabling the sensor on the door. Eversley gave everyone a thumbs up, then vanished into the hole. John was holding his breath, waiting to know that things were all right. He watched the others, but couldn't get a good read out of their body language. He figured that after a bit of time he'd have been able to. But for now, he presumed the stress was irrelevant to them.
We are clear.
Qureshi said,
Good copy.
replied Keith.
All right, Gamma, let's get to work.
With his words, the team moved forward carefully but quickly. John quickly set his camera back to its normal setting. He didn't want to lose any good footage due to being zoomed clear in on an elbow or a backpack. John took a moment to take a breath before jumping into the hatch, falling slowly into the superstructure of the station. John estimated he was just 5 feet away from the hatch when Stuart reached out his hand and pulled him into the walkway, which would typically extend to the hatch when opened. When he looked down, the lack of open space surprised him. He expected it to be a large, open area and was not planning to see all the walkways, frames, and supports. John looked back and offered to help Harrison over as he descended in.
Thanks.
Harrison said.
Everyone in?
Keith asked. No one answered while the chain of bodies moved around the narrow walkway. John wasn't as steady in minimal gravity as the rest of them were, but he made sure not to slow them down. Having Harrison pushing and Stuart dragging him left little choice in the matter. It took a moment to realize he needed to use the heads-up display's enhanced imager. Once it was up, he could see how much space there was between the various stations. There was still far less open area than he had expected, but more than he thought after entry. It only took a few minutes for the team to get to the separation point. He watched Keith and Holt exchange a fist bump, while the teams flowed in their different directions. John felt himself swept up with Keith's team, and after a quick glance at Harrison, he just accepted the fact. John watched forward again as they made their way to the hangar. There were only a couple of changes in direction between their entry and the access airlock to the hangar station. He allowed himself a moment's pride because he could recall the layout they had shown him, and was keeping a decent account of their location mentally. After the second turn, Keith held his hand up and John watched everyone freeze. John knelt with Harrison and Stuart, looking around to see if there was some sort of threat. There was nothing to be seen. John was about to ask what was happening when he heard Keith on the radio.
First squad to Overwatch.
Keith said.
We've reached entry point and are holding.
Jubert's voice came over the line.
Good copy. Have you holding that entry point. Be advised, we still do not have access to internal sensors. Advise that you hold until we gain access to network. Copy that.
Keith said.
All right, everyone. Looks like we get comfy for a bit.
John settled in, much like the rest of the team, resting on his heels. It hadn't taken him long to appreciate the minor tricks they had shown him. Squatting down as he was and settling, his weight felt good after the space drop, and the walk through the station to this point. He had expected 0 atmosphere and minimal gravity to be easier to move in. Done.
You know,
Apart from
Emery,
the butchering
Little-
of the
little-
narration.
I almost
sorry.
regret to ask you how you felt about that, but I'm going to ask you anyway how you felt about that.
So it is always cool to hear the work done and to hear the characters get voice and become just a little bit more solidified into the universe. It's great, and that for me makes up for any of the hiccups.
The hiccups.
No, go ahead,
Sorry,
Conor.
go on, Matt. Ah, well, if you insist. Yeah, the hiccups, they are so frequent. Like, it's when you listen to the finished product of somebody's audiobook, and obviously it sounds amazing because, you know, the narrators we know and ones we don't know, they're amazing at what they do. That's why they're in the job. But once you start to realize that they have sat in a booth and they will have been berating themselves for hours on ends at the amount of times they fuck up a word or they can't get over a word, it's so funny.
Yeah, which is a lot of the only reason why we sit here and give each other as much crap while we're doing a live read and messing up. One, this is diss, right? So we have to have that in there. But also it's understanding that we, like Conor's saying, we all go through it. I'm sitting here reading this going, oh man, I'm never gonna get a job as a narrator. Right? It's kind of like, I promise I do this professionally.
Words are hard. They are, though.
But you know, yeah, it's hard. It's really hard live. And even though we're doing recording, this is, you know, essentially it's live. We're here with you, in front of you, trying to recreate your work, and that is difficult to do in front of the author. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Always.
I love the characters. I think there's a lot of playing room with the characters. If I was doing these characters and all that, I was like, I'm sitting there, and that's what's hard to read live because I'm like, oh, I could do this or this or this or this. Oh shit, it's my line. And then you quickly pick your character choice and roll with it, you know. But yeah, hopefully, like you were saying, hopefully it's pretty cool to hear that. I'm sure you've heard many times, Emery, you know, true dual narrations or duets, but you don't usually hear more than two people, right?
Yeah.
There's a few books where they may add in a couple more, but having something like this where you have the potential to have like almost a whole cast would bring it very much differently alive and different characters, and then those people can really be those characters and all of that. But yeah, I don't know. It was pretty cool. It was fun. So we appreciate you. I do want to say it's fun. The writing is awesome. I love the way the characters
100%.
interact. I love how the scene is interactive. So you're not just focused in on this conversation, this micro conversation, this conversation. This is all happening, and it is happening. So sometimes you have, you know, Eversley dropping into a conversation that Keith is having with Qureshi. You know what I mean? Or something like that. And then you literally in the book, I'm pretty sure in this excerpt, you know, he walked from one place to another and went from conversation to conversation. And that real worldism, I think, helps connect the reader and the listener to be able to really imagine that environment and see it in their head. Like, oh, there's this group here, there's this group here. Here's the captain or the team leader, right, going to each group.
And so that was part of the real fun and the goal with putting it together that way was so many things are like 360 constantly moving and being active. I wanted that really to come into the story I was writing. I didn't want it to feel static scenes because it's not. This is a dynamic ride that you're literally kind of getting, especially for Newsy's perspective, you're getting grabbed and just go, come on, here we go.
I love the way that you've got one person pushing him and one person pulling him. I find that with narration is sometimes like when you're going through it and there is a bit that you've forgotten about, or you know, as you're narrating it, it catches you off guard and you sort of sit there and chuckle, and then you have to go back and redo that take.
Right.
But it's also one of my favorite bits is when you have to redo those lines because you get caught off guard by something.
That's part of the really fun appeal to this setup, being able to see people respond to the section that you wrote and catching that. and to watch him go, really?
Yeah, and it's interesting to see like Newsy go from and John go from where he was and his sort of his stature, so to say, then joining up, you know what I mean, with this group, and all of a sudden he's the one getting pushed around and bossed around, and he's like, this is craziness, what the hell's happening? So but that gives you that good vulnerability to that character as well, right? Where, you know, that there is always like a bigger fish or somebody out there, right, that trumps you, that makes your skill set or your authority just kind of minuscule at the time, right? Or being thrown to the wolves when, you know, you have no idea what environment you're in or what's going to happen. Like that line there towards the end where he's like, I'm not really interested in seeing what a firefight would look like right now. You can feel that real fear from him where he's like, screw that. Can we do anything but that right now, please? Please? Anybody? Guys?
Yeah.
Especially when you get...
not.
Yeah.
Especially when you get the narrator who can do a couple takes of it. That's the magic of narration, is it's always one or two takes rather than the one cold read sort of style.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, I like this format, and I've always loved doing CSI cold reads on TikTok as well, because getting to sit here and listen to the author that's written it give their feedback and go, yeah, no, I really like it when people read my work. It's fulfilling. It's nice. It's a nice touch. I love being able to do it, even as badly as that.
So I do have to ask. I know it's probably way too freaking soon, but work has begun on book 3, Emery.
Yes.
Are we well underway into book 3?
I'm probably about a third of the way through my concept idea, and I'm kind of laying that down to see how it feels, because it follows in the same stylization, but I'm adding. It's going to split through more characters, but they're going to be very, very much done in isolation. You won't get as much of like this where it's everybody's a canopy of presence. It's going to be pieces of things told from the different perspectives. I'm eager to see how that's received as I kind of beta that out and see what happens.
Yeah, that's what beta and arc readers are for, right? Before you put stuff out.
Yeah, it might have to go back to the drawing board and be like, okay, fine, we're just going to write it this way. But
like, can you please rate the continuity of this with my previous work? So how many words or how many chapters, however you want to put it, was the Tronus assignment?
Tronus assignment, I think, came out at 12. It's about half the size of the Avalon assignment.
And that was going to be my next question. That's what I thought. Avalon assignment was much larger, bigger story, much bigger story. Are you gonna follow that and make the third book that's the game? One of those massive guys that's like 1,000 pages.
The game is to work its way up, because these were created as initially as like a cold open to a book that I co-authored that got me into writing, and I had a friend, Rowan Hendershot, who drugged me through the process of writing. We wrote the original novel that had these characters and everything that I wanted to do. So they helped me get that going, and we tag teamed that project, and then it wound up kind of sitting on a developmental plate because we weren't really sure where to go. And that's why I moved into writing the Tronus assignment, and that became the Avalon assignment, and the next assignment. It's like, okay, that I went from, I'm just going to make one short little adventure to set the stage and maybe get some attention.
I believe.
Whoops.
Yeah, I believe I remember that conversation. I think I was sitting in a conversation with one of the very first times I actually talked to you. That story was told to me, forced upon by Rowan and Tanya to tell me that story. As we'd be amiss not to mention Tanya and anything that is books in the community and the stuff that we do, because she has her hand on a little bit of everything, and is the reason that Emery, that you and I met. And I was lucky enough, I will toot my own horn here because I can, is that I...
No, you can't.
No, you can't. You don't have anything to toot.
Yeah, and I'll be damned if I let you toot your own horn. Not on this show.
I am half of this. I was lucky enough to do a book trailer for you for the Tronus assignment, and that was a lot of fun. Love doing that, and that's how you and I got introduced. So yeah, hopefully in the future we can do some more reads. Maybe we'll pull you back on here another season for the next book or something like that. Or
I'm
back
game.
on
I'm
for
done
some
for
more
it.
chaos.
Hey, chaos is good too.
So far,
Chaos is
loving
good too.
loving the story for sure. Though, like I said, the dynamic just from this excerpt alone definitely makes me want to read this book. So, very well chosen
100%.
excerpt. Very well, or very good, challenging the voice actors up here at words, because we all allegedly are professionals.
We allegedly read
I
things.
asked before I gave this to you. You said, "Here, give me this."
Yes, you did.
Okay.
You were you know what, Emery, you were brilliant. You had everything ducks in a row, all of that set, and all right, this is what they want. All right, have at her. But it still was a lot of fun. I would like to see some point maybe Molly and Conor and I mess around on the back end, and we do some actual homework and do some reads together, and then come back and give you a good solid professional read of this guy as well.
I'm a game for that.
He's like, whatever, you guys got to do the work. It's your pride.
Yeah. I was going to sit here and listen. Like, crack on.
It's I've said it. It's a unique feeling getting to hear it, because I've said this before. You spend so much time chipping at this and writing and rewriting and going through the edits and getting completely pissed off at the whole project. It's like, I'm done with this. I'm going to go do something else for a little while. To get to hear it when other people are like something like this, it's a chance to actually hear it and enjoy it and be like, okay, I did put something together that doesn't make other people's head hurt as much as it did mine putting it writing it.
Yeah, I can't imagine being an author and writing like that and having to reread your stuff just 8 bajillion times. I would probably end up. I understand why sometimes it takes a long time, why you would get in your own head about things, why you would overthink things, because it's just so in your face all the time, over and over and repetitive, that it's hard for your brain to go, well, I must be looking at it over and over because there's something to fix. Even though probably 5 renditions ago, it was perfect. That's how we work as creatives, right? As creatives, we're too much in our heads and we overanalyze and we do those things. Like, I know Molly is quite the perfectionist with her art and her work. I know she likes to make sure that she gets it absolutely right every time and works very hard and gets so irritated, as you can see, that she has busted her microphone and her camera and has destroyed her entire booth. This is just a picture. I'm just playing with you, Molly. I do have to say we are running out of time here too, as to where we told you guys we'd be at. So next author show and all of that, I think we will get to some more games and some fun with Conor and I. Molly, we know you will definitely be back for some VO chaos in the future. And then Emery, I believe we are going to have you back on just to shoot the shit, my friend, because I think I think you fit in very well.
This is fun.
Yes.
This has been an absolute blast.
Good. Thank you. This is the goal that Conor and I have is just to have a whole shit ton of fun messing around, even though we're doing our profession. But this is about having fun. If we can't laugh at each other and make fun of each other and have all these good times and laughs, then we're taking life too seriously. And
Exactly.
I'll still take the money, but it's not fun money. You know what I mean?
I think life has a way of getting on top of everyone, and especially at different times. And that's part of the reason that we wanted to do this, is so that we can have a laugh and people listening or watching can have a laugh for an hour and just switch the world off and listen to 2 idiots and their friends chat shit and take the piss out of each other. And 100% going to get you back on for a more vocal role, and we can take the piss out of you and you can take the piss out of us.
Hey, works for me.
Perfect.
I did want to, Molly, if you are able to come back, I just wanted you to plug where you are and all your good stuff. If you don't show back up on my screen, I'm just going to direct people to where I know to direct them to find you. This is Jake. This is where you put in the Jeopardy music. Put in Jeopardy.
Countdown.
America. Okay. Are we just going to jump right to the argument? Huh?
No, we're not. We do not have enough time left on this show
All right,
for that
Connor, shut up.
argument.
Molly's ready. All right.
Son of a bitch.
Molly's not
Go,
ready.
Molly.
Fuck.
Molly's not. Molly's ready. Her
She's
Mac
going.
is not.
No. Aptly put.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Great point. Yeah. No, Emery is amazing. You're right. Matt needs to work on his talents. Yep, agreed. See? She agrees.
She did say yeah.
Oh, no, is that a
Balls.
new segment?
It might be.
Ooh.
Yeah, just narrate the person that's on mute, right? Molly, I'm just going to direct everybody as far as I know where to reach you. That Molly Rock on TikTok, if you want to go check out the stuff that she's worked on. She has several fine readings on there, lots of different character stuff, so please go check out her stuff. I know that she is also working on narrating a book at the moment. We will see when that comes out, but hopefully very soon, because Molly is a fantastic narrator. And you have got to check out her character work, because there is not too many people who are on her level. I'm going to say that. So very, very, very much up there. Emery, I will let you plug your own stuff. Where can people find you, and what are all the good things about you right now?
Easy enough to find. You can go to my website, talesbyelgrover.com, and that's got a link to all of my social media. My most active one is on TikTok. That seems to get the most traction and interaction, which is at Emery_Grover. Facebook's Tales by E.L. Grover. Same for Instagram and Twitter. Well, X, I guess it's now. Use the right app. But
People
run
know.
to my website. That'll get you there. That also has the link to both books, and it's also got copies of the character art.
Ooh.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, please go out and check out the Tronus assignment, the Avalon assignment. Pick those up. Fantastic reads. Make sure that you go grab that. And as part of this show, as we have said before, but I love to say, is we are all about supporting our indie creators here. There are the big companies and all of those things, but Conor and myself are indie narrators, indie voice actors, and we love to have our indie authors and everybody else on to promote their stuff and prove that on the indie scene we can do it too. We can publish our own stuff. We can get it all out there and be just as successful. So it's part of what we're doing here. Conor, sir, if you want to plug your stuff and what you're currently working on.
I am currently working on DYSSPodcast. Sorry, Matt, did you say something?
No.
No? Beautiful.
Nice plug.
Thank you. As well as audiobooks. I've nearly wrapped one audiobook. Then I'm moving on to The Ghost in This House by Angelique. Yeah, no, Ghost in This House by Angelique. And then I've also got Pandemic, which is by David, which is coming out soon. Coming out soon. That should be coming out in September. Recording very soon. In fact, today, I don't know if you guys caught it, Jazz and I were on TikTok Live doing a little back and forth read, which was good fun. So I will probably be doing the same when I record my stuff. And then I've got, adverts for various production companies, as well as other things going on with other production companies. Very busy at the minute. And obviously on the side of all of that, trying to do life and day job, which is also sometimes night shift job. But there's a lot going on. Very busy. And I wouldn't have it any other way right now, because I love doing this.
Yeah, agreed. Well said. This is, I think I heard somebody say once in my life, one of my coaches said, the most successful people in the world are sometimes the most busiest, and more often than not, the most busiest people. Which is interesting, but yeah, you know what I mean? Keep your mind occupied and rolling, and we're always learning till the day we go. Never stop challenging yourself, people.
Every day is a school day.
Yeah. I didn't think when I, around the time that I turned 40, I was all of a sudden going to start voice acting and start like 3 different companies and start doing all these things. So
it's hard to think you've been doing this 20 years.
That's fine. That just shows depth. That's all. So some of us are natural. Some of us have to work a lot harder. That's usually me. So anyway,
It shows.
really, yeah. So very, very thankful to do all this stuff. I do have to kick one thing down, and I'll plug my stuff and we'll get out of here. But there is a speech, if you guys don't know, it came from a long time ago. It was a graduation speech. I definitely want to encourage everybody to listen to it. It actually changed my life quite a bit. Don't know why. Certain things just hook onto us, and it is called the sunscreen speech. And yes, it is sunscreen, Connor. I know that makes you happy, even though it is 100% sunblock. But it is called the sunscreen speech. Please look that up if you know what it is. It is a fantastic speech. And the reason that I love it is it works for all generations. Doesn't matter what generation, from the newest generation to the oldest generation, it completely works. So yeah, the sunscreen speech, I don't have the name of the presenter. I apologize off the top of my head. But look it up. You will find it. It's usually attached with a song. Pretty cool stuff. So my name is Matt Mangum. I am a voice actor doing this here on DYSSPodcast with Conor. Doing a lot of other things. If you've seen me before, I am a co-owner and founder of Bewilder Biscuit Productions, which is one of the production companies Conor was talking about. He's going to be a part of an upcoming project called Murder Most Mundane. It is kind of a Monty Python-esque, dry British awesome humor deal. Molly over there is also joining in on that one. So we have two of our castmates from Murder Most Mundane here. This is going to be absolutely a hilarious comic and a little bit different from our world premiere from earlier this month, right? Which was Daybreak. So please check that out. Shameless plugs. I don't care. Please check out bewilderbiscuit.com. Daybreak.bewilderbiscuit.productions is our first full motion animated comic that is out, and it is like nothing you have ever seen. I know a lot of people say that, but I'm not joking. You've never seen anything like this. Please go check it out. Emery, checked it out. Yeah, it's pretty good.
I loved it. That's great.
A lot of fun, a lot of different stuff. So we got that going on. My wife and I have started a merch company called Interface Broken, which is also the company under which this podcast exists. So this company is all things merch. Right now we are focused a little bit on our indie authors and indie companies. If you need any kind of stuff for your books, shirts to bookmarks to magnets and stickers and all sorts of things like that, we make it all. So head over to interfacebroken.com and there are custom order forms and all sorts of stuff there, and plus all of the awesome stuff that my wife makes, because I am just a face. She does all the work.
Which makes a change, because usually you're just a voice.
This is why I almost said I cared about you. Ooh. Yeah, that is rough.
Oh,
People might actually
Man.
think we like each other. Jesus.
No, I need to
have
get
that.
some. I need Tums, Rolaids, and Pepto in his booth at all times while talking to Conor, so that I can just push it down. All right.
I have earplugs whenever I listen to you, so.
And then also, of course, mattmangumvo.com is where I do all my independent voice acting things. Yes, so all the fun things, all the crazy things going on, and also I am involved in Hellscape somewhat. So yeah, we'll put that in there. I'm in a couple things in Hellscape, Till Death Do Us Part, Season 2, or Part 2, and then also some things upcoming that we can't talk about. Past that.
No, we cannot.
Otherwise, the Tanya will appear in this podcast, even though she's not invited, and smite me down, because that is how the fairy godmother of Book Talk works.
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
Can't say Tanya one more time because she will just appear.
It's tempting to see if it would really happen, but
I don't want to tempt it because I know she
really
will.
tempting fate. Tempting. Yeah, it's not a game you want to do, man.
No.
fair enough, Emery. Thank you. Thank you guys again so much for being on the show.
Yes,
I really
thank you very
appreciate
much.
you guys being here
Emery,
with us.
appreciate your work. Molly,
Thank you so much.
The time we did get to speak to you was wonderful. The rest of it was peaceful, at least. Diss you later, guys.
And she can still hear you. Fantastic. All right.
I know she can. It's wonderful.
Like, all right. And more of I was going down the goddamn list in my head of, I'm like, all right, what? But then I do this, and I'm doing this, and then as I'm saying all these things, I'm going, and I never sleep or see my kids or my wife or do my day job. How the fuck am I doing 5 different jobs and my day job and being a dad and a husband?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel you. That is, as much as indie, as much as we can do it and make it, it does feel like it's just a bit of a battle sometimes to constant, because you've got all the other stuff going on, as well as people that do have are published or using bigger names that seem to, I don't want to say have it easier, because that feels a little bit unfair, but more traditional routes, they have set paths that have less resistance.
Yeah.
Whereas it does feel like there's always a lot. It's a big juggling act, I feel.
Yeah, no, it's there's no way, like, dude, even fucking 5-10 years ago, if I would have attempted this shit, I would have fucking failed at all of it. Like 100% all of it. I was not ready to do any of that. And I'm not really ready to do it now, but I'm more equipped than I ever have been in my life. So I'll say, fuck it. And like I said, I'm throwing all my poles out there, and whatever bites and catches, it does. But yeah.
100%. I'm giving this all my energy because this is what I want to do. Unfortunately, talking to you for an hour and a half, an hour and 40, is pretty good fun.
Yeah, and what are you going to do when we have to pump out like fucking an episode a week?
I'll get over it.
Fuck yeah, if we're
Because
getting
it
paid
is
for
fun.
it, dude. I could sit and fucking bullshit with you for the fucking rest of fucking forever, I think, and be pretty fucking content for the most part in doing all of it. Honestly, it is a good fucking time.
Yeah, I genuinely the amount of conversations we've had on Discord where it just goes on and on and on. I genuinely think you and I could come here, do an episode with no structure, no guests, and fill the hour and a half.
Easy.
Challenge?
Challenge accepted. Hey, at least hopefully when people watch Daybreak, they'll understand why I say challenge accepted like that every time. I'm doing the Doc Matter thing. Challenge accepted. Like, I fucking love Zach Johnson. He killed that role.
I mean, even though I know your poster is behind you, with it being dark out there, that took me a moment. Not gonna lie.
So,
oh yeah.
And what's doing that is my cowboy hat. So,
amazing.
Because Logan always wears a cowboy hat. So that's why I figured I'd put my hat. It's completely different without it.
Yeah, now it's fine. I mean, you're not going to put it on for Emery?
Huh?
You're not going to put it on for Emery? Show him?
Nope.
Fair enough.
Fuck him.
Fuck him.
Oh, shit, he's still backstage. Fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. That guy, great author, but Jesus Christ, fuck that guy.
All right, Emery, here you go. This is mine.
Yeah, very nice.
The black hat.
Black Hat, your famous character.
Black Hat, my character. I don't even know what kind of... This is a bull hide.
Oh. Sounds good.
Nope, because I was always taught by my cowboy grandfather and my uncle that if you're not wearing a Stetson, you're not wearing a real cowboy hat.
That means absolutely fuck all to me, but yeah.
And which we all responded to them. We ain't got that kind of fucking money, Pops. So, I'm gonna go buy a $20-$30 hat. All right, fuck off. I think that hat was a bit more, but that was a gift. So.
Yeah, that's fair. Do I have a specific sign-off for this episode? No. Is the short answer. Do you have a specific sign-off for this episode?
No.
Other
we
than
can do...
fuck you?
Fuck you, dish you later.
Dish you later.